Hey, listeners, the holidays are upon us, and I want to share an exciting gift you might want to give yourself, a friend, or a loved one. After many years of working with co parents, I'm excited to announce that starting January 1st, I'll release what I'm calling the Daily Devotional for Frustrated Co Parents. When you subscribe, you will receive each day's devotional via email, Monday through Friday, to help you start each day with a good thought or a word of wisdom. I believe it will not only assist you with your difficult co-parenting relationship, but also help you grow in your relationship with God. As a longtime Christian, this has been a life goal of mine to create a Christ-centered approach to co-parenting. If you're not religious or follow another faith, no problem. I think the devotional has enough practical information in it to make it valuable to everyone. Or maybe you know someone who could benefit from it in their faith journey. To get started, follow the link in the show notes to get on my subscriber list. Then, closer to January 1, you'll receive information on how to subscribe to the devotional or start a free trial to see how you like it. My faith has kept me strong through the most difficult times, and I hope this devotional will help you in the same way. That's how you teach the value. It started with a feeling, then ended in going into thinking, and then you ended up with a value. I'm submitting that nearly every conversation you have with your child, especially when it has to do with the other parent in their household, you can turn into a values moment.
Yes.
Now, let's say you couldn't help your own feelings and you blew up. Then what do, Rick? If you blew up and said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe your dad bought a car. He hasn't paid me child support for 2 months." Do you leave it there? What do you do?
If you now you got another opportunity to teach your child values by modeling apology. And I wasn't my best moment. And
yeah. Right. Because I want you to know that you can talk to me about anything. Mm-hmm. Sadness, joy, anger, frustration. It doesn't matter, whatever it is. Whether it's with your dad, whether it's with your friends at school, your teachers, wherever your world is, I want to know what you feel about it.
Yep.
Because it's important to me, not only because I love you, but I'm your parent. Hey, this is Diane Dirks.
And I'm Rick Voiles.
We've been working with co-parents in conflict for more than 2 decades. We've taught classes, written books, counseled parents, empathized, and agonized a few times to help people make sense of their complicated families.
We were talking one day, and it occurred to us that helping the most difficult cases comes down to one simple concept. Is one parent willing to let go of the tug-of-war rope, or is it worth it to hold on and fight?
So we invite you to take this journey with us each episode as we tackle the questions, should you hold on or let it go? Welcome to Co-Parent Dilemmas, where we give you practical solutions to those impossible co-parents. Hello, Rick.
Hello, Diane.
How goes it?
How was your weekend?
My weekend was uneventful. So a good one.
A good one.
In that regard.
Yeah.
We sat around and ate a lot of candy because we didn't have as many trick-or-treaters as we thought we would have. So.
We had none.
Really?
Yes.
And I like to buy the good candy. Because I hated it when I was a kid and they gave you cheap candy.
Right.
But then the problem is then you want to eat the good candy afterward. So anyway. What about you?
Yeah, I'm still eating candy too.
Okay. So, as promised, yes. I'm starting today's episode with a good news story.
Ooh, I'm ready.
And last episode, I kind of talked trash a little bit about young teenagers being difficult.
Oh, yeah. 13-year-olds.
Yeah, but this is a good news story about teenagers.
Oh, good.
So when you open it up, there's this picture and it's 10 teenage boys. I think they're like freshmen and sophomore, surrounding this janitor who's an immigrant from Ghana. And here's what it says. These high school sophomores recently raised over $20,000 to surprise their favorite school janitor with a brand new car.
Holy cow.
The fundraiser kicked off in advance of Francis Apraku's birthday, whom the boys describe as super kind and friendly. They asked him what he wanted as a present, and joking, he said he'd love a new Jeep Wrangler. So Bennett, Nick, and another Nick, Arton, Joey, Yusuf, and Logan hoped to have enough by the time they graduated from James Madison High School in Vienna, Virginia, to give Apraku his Jeep. But after creating their GoFundMe in May, they had enough by summer to give him his surprise.
Wow.
With the help of their community, they raised $21,000, which they used to buy the Jeep in candy apple red, surprising Apraku in the parking lot of the school. And then they show a video, and the video is so cute. They show him coming out and seeing the car, and he gets so touched by it. He falls on the ground and he's rolling around. And he cannot believe. And then he gets up and these boys all surround him and hug him. I just thought it was so great.
That's amazing.
I know, $21,000. I think it said March to May.
Man, that's a lot.
And that is something else. So just goes to show you, just a little bit of friendliness and kindness might get you a car.
Yes,
yeah, it's just, I thought it was great. I mean, teenage boys, you don't think of teenage boys caring about anybody else but themselves. But this man apparently just won their heart just by being friendly and kind. And they just thought he was a cool guy and decided they were going to surprise him. So anyway, I'll put the link in the show notes, but it was very cute.
Very nice.
Nice. What else before we get started? Mentioned this last episode, but I want to mention again, if you want to be part of our pediatrician / parent brainstorming meeting, where we're going to talk to some pediatrician residents about how they might structure things in their practice to be helpful to co-parents, especially those in high conflict. We want a parent perspective there as well as the doctor's perspective. If you want to participate in that, send me an email at diane@cpdilemmas.com. Okay. Today, we're going to start the first of a 3-part series, Rick.
Yep.
And this comes from me getting emails recently, really probably over the last couple of months, where I feel like people are expressing issues and problems that we, I think, address quite often in the show about how to talk to children, or how to use the email protocol, or what kind of boundaries to set with their co-parent. And it occurred to me that we talk about the skills quite often, but we often don't talk about the why under the skill.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be a series about why these critical skills matter. So I want to start with, I'm going to use an email from Trenton, and I want to start with this and talking about not only how you should respond to children when they tell you difficult things, but why what we suggest matters. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you find that as well, that sometimes when you're talking to co-parents, they kind of glaze over when you're talking about the skill until you give them a reason why it matters?
I think oftentimes the skill is counterintuitive. They don't really kind of think about it. But if you offer them a perspective where they can make a shift, then it falls into place.
Yeah. And we may probably, from time to time, when we allude to the why, especially with kids, I think we try to help parents understand their mindset. But what I'm going to talk about today goes a little bit deeper into the parenting reason. Why the way we're suggesting that you talk to your kids is a parent strategy.
Yeah.
Not just a divorce or co-parent strategy.
Right. Yes. It's a good parenting practice. Yep.
Right. So why don't you go ahead and read the email from Trenton?
All right. Trenton says, Diane and Rick, I'm struggling with how to talk to my 10-year-old daughter when she expresses disappointment about being a child of divorce. The other day, she said she is tired of going back and forth between her two homes and wishes she could just stay in one place. When I asked her if she didn't want to see me anymore, she started to cry and said no, she did, but hated divorce. I was at a loss what to say. We have been divorced for 5 years, so I don't know where this is coming from. We have 60-40 split, and I have worked hard to be present during the time she is with me. What can I do better to help her be okay?
I think this is a fairly common issue. Would you say?
The issue of specifically, I don't want to be a child of divorce, or just how to respond?
Having a child come to you and all of a sudden after, they seem to have been doing well for a while, they just sort of say something that throws you off and leaves you maybe a little speechless as a parent.
Yes, yeah. I think that's very common. Yeah.
Yeah. So I liked this because I want to talk to Trenton about learning how to take care of his child's needs instead of his own, because in this email, I'm feeling from Trenton that in the conversation he had with his daughter, he was making it about him.
Yeah.
How do you think he did that, Rick?
Well, do you not want to see me anymore?
Right.
I mean, I thought, oh my gosh, that's a terrible thing to ask.
Well, right away, he got scared.
Right.
What do you mean you don't like going back and forth? You just want to stay in one place. His interpretation, instead of saying maybe she wants to be with me all the time, he's thinking she doesn't want to be with me any of the time, which is really thinking about his own feelings,
right?
Not thinking about her feelings. And we get this a lot. A child comes home and it can be something as small as saying, "Hey, Mom, Dad bought a brand new Corvette this weekend and it was really fun riding in it." And instead of thinking about the child, it would be very easy to at least think in your mind and then maybe subsequently say something. What? He hasn't paid child support for 2 months, right, and he's out buying a brand new red car, right?
Right.
I mean, it could be something that concrete, or something about the child coming home and complaining about something the parent said or did to them.
Yeah.
It is a little more complicated. That you think, okay, what do I do with that? And most of our parents that listen to us, I think, want to do the right thing. They know not to do something intentionally hurtful. I don't think Trenton was trying to be hurtful to his daughter when he said that.
No.
But he right away thought, well, maybe she doesn't want to be with me. And he brings that up, and it's not surprising she started to cry, which are tears of nobody gets me.
Right.
Even my dad doesn't get me. Nobody gets me. Right. So I want to talk about feelings, thoughts, and values. And I'm a cognitive behavioral therapist by trade, or that's what my theoretical kind of foundation is as a therapist. Most therapists have some sort of theoretical foundation. And when I was studying to be a therapist, this is the theoretical perspective that I related to the most.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean I use it on everybody, or that I don't use other theoretical perspectives. It depends on the patient or the client. But this is really helpful, this perspective, in talking about how to speak to children and why it's important. So if you picture a triangle, at the very bottom of the triangle, put a line across the bottom of the triangle, and that's feelings. The next middle third of the triangle would be thoughts or thinking. And the top smaller part of the triangle would be values. What I try to teach parents is that as adults, the healthy adult, keep in mind we're not all healthy because we didn't have good parents maybe.
Right.
But the healthy adult who had decent parenting, not perfect parent, but decent parenting, has learned a top-down approach to decision-making as an adult. And you do it all day long. So that means you start with your values, which manages your thoughts, which then manages your feelings. So when adults have feelings, that doesn't mean they don't have big feelings. but eventually their values will manage their thoughts, which will then manage those feelings. So let me give you an example. So I don't want to go to work. I'm tired. It's Friday. I'm looking for the weekend. It's rainy. I'm in bed. It's warm in my bed. It's very comfy. My little dog is snuggled up to me snoring, and my alarm goes off, and I want to cry. I have a big feeling. And you start thinking, maybe, can I pretend to be sick?
Yeah.
Think of all the ways that I might accomplish taking care of my feeling. But eventually, as you engage your brain, your values typically kick in, and you start thinking things like, yeah, but I called off twice last month. If I do it again, my boss might be suspicious. I don't really like to lie. So I'm not a very good liar. And then I'm going to have to go into the office on Monday and everybody's going to ask me if I'm feeling better. And then that's going to be awkward because I wasn't really sick. And even though it'll feel nice to stay in bed, I'll probably lay here and think about the fact that I just told a lie. Then I'll get up and then I'll be anxious all day because my values tell me that I don't like to lie. Or it might be simpler than that. I need this job. If I call off one more time, I might get fired. And I value my job because it puts food on the table and pays my bills and takes care of my family. And that's very important. So therefore, I'm going to get my butt out of bed and I'm going to go to work. Does that make sense?
Did it many times. Yes.
So you have these feelings, but the adult tends to be able to engage the thinking part of their brain that then manages those feelings. And the thinking part of the brain is typically managed by the values. So
yes.
you have the triangle pictured in your head.
Yeah, kind of a pyramid.
Yeah, pyramid. Yeah. Starts with the values, filters down to the thinking, then manages the feelings. I'm here to tell you that children do not have this skill. They have to be taught. It's not innate. So a 3-year-old will throw herself on the ground crying, having a major meltdown because mom said no to the cookie. Now, mom may say in a very logical fashion, you haven't had your dinner yet. You can have a cookie after dinner. And the 3-year-old will probably continue to scream because she just doesn't know what to do with all these feelings, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And eventually mom will walk away. The child will soothe herself somehow. Dinner will happen. After dinner, mom delivers a cookie. And what has the child learned?
Well, hopefully that mom keeps her word and that I will get it if I just wait. But I don't want to wait. Yes.
The value learned is exactly what you said. My mom keeps her word. So I can trust that. And even though I'm having this big feeling, if I think through it, the last time I had dinner, I got the cookie after dinner because mom said so, and I'm really going to be okay. While she's having a meltdown, her 5-year-old sister is sitting next to her looking at her like she's nuts because 5-year-old learned this 2 years ago.
Right.
So she's going, I don't know why mom always gives us the cookie after dinner, or whatever the dessert is or whatever.
Yeah.
So something as simple as that, a 5-year-old has learned usually, right? If it was a 14-year-old doing this, we would be really worried.
Whoa, yeah.
Because by 14, hopefully they have acquired many more of these values, thoughts, and feelings skills. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's the parent's job, really, when a child has big feelings, to help them know what to do with those feelings, right?
Yes.
And the first step in helping a child with their feelings is to take care of those feelings. Let them know you hear them. I've been there. You're not crazy. You don't say that. That is the method of thought as you're helping your child. So for instance, when people first go through a divorce, Rick, think back when you were first going through the divorce, like 2 weeks into it. I bet you had a lot of feelings.
Oh, yeah.
What were your feelings? Can you name some of them?
Oh, feeling of loss, anger that that what I wanted didn't turn into anything, that terrible feeling of loss.
Mm-hmm. The frustration maybe with how things were going,
and fear of what do if I do something, if I don't do something. Either way, it's scary.
How many friends do you think you wore out with your story in those first few months?
Well, it's kind of like asking, do I still have any of those friends after I went through all of that?
How many of your friends became alcoholics because you always had to go have a drink and tell them the same old story?
Yes, that is the risk. Yes, absolutely.
Let me say thank you to all of my friends.
Yes.
Who shamelessly came to my aid when I needed to tell my story one more time.
So
absolutely. Even as adults, if the feelings are big enough, it's really hard to manage them. Sometimes, like a divorce, for instance, we don't quite have the value system in place to help us manage it, right?
Right.
Because if you didn't come from a family of divorce, or you haven't had anything quite like this happen to you, that's part of the loss and the fear. Oh my gosh, I don't have anything to go to on this. I don't know what to do with it. So what we tend to do, Rick, when we as adults are having big feelings, we go to our friends, our trusted friends, or family members, whoever it is. And what types of friends and family members do we choose? Are we likely to choose our most judgmental friends?
No.
What type of friends do we want to choose, Rick?
Well, the friends I kept were the ones that actually agreed with me.
Okay. In the beginning, you want someone to be angry with you, understand your fear, say, oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that to you. They're a jerk and you're not. And in the beginning, you just want someone to tell you you're not crazy.
Yes.
It's called what we call validation. Why is that important? It's important because you can't get to your thought process until you handle or manage your feelings. So in that brand new situation, you're actually a child doing a bottom-up process because it's brand new to you, right?
Right.
So you can't even get to that thought process because your feelings are so big. So the purpose of your friends or family members who you're telling the story to is for them to go, yeah, I get you. I would do that too. If it happened to me, I would have done the same thing. I feel the same way you do, or something like that. Even if you didn't do the right things, they still will support you in some way. They might not tell you, yeah, I would have had an affair too if I were you, but they would understand maybe why you strayed, or whatever it is that you're bringing to them, your defenses, they're going to say, yeah, I get it. Those are good friends.
Yes.
But after a while, you're really good friends. The ones that aren't really good friends will go away and stop answering your calls because all you talk about is your divorce drama.
They're exhausted. Yes.
But your really good friends at some point are going to say, okay, dude, it's time to stop whining. Let's talk about what you're going to do about it.
Right.
And they help engage your thinking and getting to your logic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And between the thinking and the logic, you begin to develop a value around your situation. And you begin to say, okay, I'm not the worst person in the world. I'm not a loser like I've been telling myself, or everything wasn't all her fault. You begin to think through in a logical way and use some of your other wisdom and life experience to come to some sort of value about what you've just been through. And it's a really helpful process, and it's part of grief.
Mm-hmm.
In a divorce, it's part of grief. And now you have a frame of reference so that if somebody else were to go through a divorce, now you have the top down to help them do the bottom up. So I'm saying all that because I want adults to understand how it feels from a child's perspective. When the child comes home and says, I'm tired of this, I don't want to be going back and forth anymore. Instead of thinking about you, you have to understand, what does my child need from me? And in that moment, what my child needs from me is to say, that makes sense. I understand the feeling. You're not crazy. Lots of kids probably feel this way who go through a divorce. I've never been through a divorce, maybe as a child, so I can't imagine how hard this must be for you. I'm here for you. Because you want to calm your child's feelings, because if you go right into lecture mode, they can't hear you. Because lecturing usually has to do with thinking and analytics, right? The brain cannot process analytical thinking or problem solving type thinking when it's flooded with emotion. So if you want your child to hear what you have to say, or you bring some logic to the situation, you have to take the first step. And you may have to do that several times before they're ready for the logic and thinking. So when your teenager comes home and says, I've decided I'm not going to college, I'm going to join a rock band instead. Instead of going into the lecture, because they're testing you and they're hoping you'll get angry so they can really get mad at you and do what they want. But if they're having a big feeling about this, there's a reason why they're having a feeling of wanting to change their entire plan for their future. And you would do well to say, tell me more about that. There must be something going on inside your heart that you would make such a different decision than what we talked about before. What's happening in there? Get them to talk more about their feelings. And the more you affirm those feelings, then they don't have to rely on the feelings anymore because you've calmed them down. When you do this, you can actually see your child's shoulders sort of drop, the anxiety maybe leave their face, their voice might get more calm. Then you know, okay, I've done my job. And then the next step is then to talk through the logic. And when you do that, you're building that top of that triangle, the value system that they're going to use as an adult, as a top down. So people out there that think divorce is a tragedy, my child should never have to go through it, this is the worst thing in the world. Not really, if you do the right thing with it.
Right.
You can teach so many skills for your child and give them some things that other kids their age who didn't have to go through something as traumatic as a divorce are not going to learn till much later in life. This is a grand opportunity for parents to use this skill building that they've learned to teach their kids how to do it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So before we get back to Trenton, let me give another example. Let's go back to the red Corvette.
Okay.
As a simple one. Because this will happen. A child comes home. How was your weekend at Dad's? Oh, it was awesome. Dad bought a new Corvette this weekend. We took a ride out to the lake with the top down. It was amazing. And Mom didn't hear anything else but what?
He spent money on a Corvette.
Oh my God. So she might not say, how dare him? He hasn't paid me child support in 2 months. She might do something worse, which is to walk away so that I don't show them how I really feel. Why is that worse? Well, maybe not worse, but why is that bad?
Well, I'm sharing something that I'm excited about, and you just act like I'm not even here.
Yeah. The message is, I can't tolerate anything good you have to tell me about Dad.
Or any good experience you might be having. Yeah.
Right. They might not know anything about child support. Doesn't matter. But Mom needs to at least say, wow, you seem pretty excited about that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it. What color is it? What color is the interior? Ask more questions, get them to talk, because what you want to say to them is when you share a feeling, it matters.
Yes.
Now, in that example, you're just letting them know their feelings matter so that later on, when they have a tough feeling, they will share it with you because you know what to do with it.
Yep.
In that example, there's not really any thinking involved in values form. The only value is that my person, for a child, that would be the parent they trust. When I have a feeling, my person knows what to do with it. So in that example, you're actually teaching them how to choose a person in their adult life. Choose somebody who will listen to you, be joyful with you, celebrate with you.
And the kind of person they want to be with other people.
Right. So you're in that example, you're teaching them sort of a relational skill.
Absolutely.
Even though I have difficult feelings about your dad and I want to judge that he just bought a car and hasn't paid child support, I'm not going to bring that to you. It wouldn't be helpful to you. So I'm going to celebrate with you and let you know that you can talk about anything you need to talk about. Right.
Yep.
And then they will learn to value that in relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes. And what I've seen parents do a lot is they try to engage that logic process way too soon. So they'll hear the child's negative feelings and they'll start to offer, well, your dad really loves you. Or, sometimes we get in circumstances it's a little difficult. And so, and they try to create understanding for the child before they ever do that validation process. And they skip one whole step.
Right. And that's a great point because there's actually 3 errors that parents can make. I was just getting ready to go into that. So thank you, Rick.
Okay.
Let's get off the Corvette example. I want to talk about something a little harder. So your child comes home from mom's house and says he's very upset because mom has lied to him.
Yes.
Now, if that triggers dad, he may do one of 3 things. He may do what I call a one-up, which none of us like the one-up when we're having big feelings.
Right.
You think that's bad. You should hear what happened to me. We don't like those people, right? Because they're not really hearing our feelings. They just want to take our story and trump it and tell their story so that everybody in the room feels sorry for them. I don't know what the purpose of that is. But anyway, it's easy to do that with kids when you hear, mom lied to me. And you might be tempted to say, well, she lied to me for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you about that. Because that's just who your mom is. She's nothing but a big fat liar. That's not really helpful to the child. That's helpful to you as a parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing a parent might do is try to fix it. What? She lied to you? We're going to call her right now. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make sure this never happens again, because somehow we feel all powerful that somehow we can take our child's hurt, bring it up to the other parent and make it all go away, which has very opposite effects. What's going to happen if you do that? Because the child is just telling you something, probably cringing when you say, well, let me call mom and let's work this out.
Right. Now I'm going to be in trouble because So now when I go back to the other house, I'm going to get yelled at.
And I'm oversimplifying for purpose of not going too long here, but that might be a longer conversation than just mom lied to me. You may tell a little story and then you think, oh, that's wrong. And I can't believe she's still doing this. And, a lot of thought goes into that, but regardless, be very, very careful about taking your child's confidential words that they're telling you and deciding I'm going to go fix this with the other parent, because it could make things worse.
Yes.
So that would be a second in error strategy. The third thing is kind of what you talked about, is when a parent wants to smooth it over because they're uncomfortable that their child is feeling bad.
Right.
So, oh, I'm sorry, but I know your mom is a good person and I know she loves you. And I'm sure that she didn't mean to lie to you, because you want to make your child's feelings go away.
Yes.
I can't let my child feel badly. So how can I make them feel better? Why doesn't that work?
Well, that's not what feelings are for. You're not trying to make them go away so that I feel better. You want to hear them, so they start to identify and be able to have feelings. They can verbalize them, which gives them a better chance of regulating them. But if you're just constantly protecting them from bad feelings, you're going to raise a terrible child.
Yeah, or a child that doesn't know what to do in the world. They're lost.
Yeah.
Right. So those 3 strategies to one up your child, to fix their problem or smooth over their feelings, those don't work. Right.
Right.
Because those are strategies to make us feel better. Right? So the strategy is, what does my child need? And I submit that they need the same thing you need when you have big feelings. But because you're the parent, you need to help them with those feelings and then take it another step to help them with thinking it through and then conclude with a value, because it'll be the value later on that will be their go-to to manage their thoughts and feelings. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So the child says, Mom lied to me, and he's very upset. Maybe he's angry. Let's say he's 12. Or no, let's say he's younger. Let's say he's 7. Mom has lied to me. And first thing shouldn't be, what'd she do? What'd she say? Because that engages what part of the brain?
The thought, the logic part.
Right.
Yeah.
And if he's still angry and you're trying to think it through with him, he's not going to hear it.
No.
Because you haven't helped him calm those feelings. Once someone is heard and their feelings seem validated and they feel not crazy, then we can take the next step up the pyramid. Okay. So dad needs to say something like, oh man, I hate that. It's hard when people lie to us. What is that saying to the child?
Somebody understands what I'm going through.
Yeah. The fact that I'm angry at mom is not bad or wrong.
Yes.
It's okay. I have this feeling and dad seems to get it. And that may be all it takes. Or he may need to say, tell me a little bit more about why you're feeling this way or what happened. And the child will say some other things. And along the way, you just validate, yeah, I would feel like that too if I were you, is a great phrase. If you can't come up with anything else, yeah, that makes sense. If I went through that, I would feel like that too. Then you get to the crux of the problem, right? So now the kid seems more relaxed. So what did she lie about? Well, she told me in the morning that after school, we would go and get ice cream. And then after school came and she was on the phone on the way home and she ended up at home without stopping to get the ice cream. And when I got home, I was really mad at her because she lied. She said, I should have gotten ice cream. Or I said I should have gotten ice cream. And she said she forgot. Is that when dad says, you're absolutely right. Your mom should not have forgotten the ice cream. She's a terrible mother.
She kept me from ice cream for 10 years.
Of course not. And I'm using this more simple example because I want to engage your logic as parents.
There you go.
Of course not. You wouldn't say that. I hope you wouldn't. Some really awful co-parents might say that and agree with you. But if you did agree with them, what kind of message are you sending to a child about how you should feel about somebody who forgets something?
Right. Nobody should ever make me feel bad. Right.
Or, my goodness, everyone must be perfect. And if they're not perfect, they're deemed liars. Yep. Can never be trusted again. Well, that child is going to have a hard time living in the real world.
Absolutely.
People forget things all the time. We have to learn to not take everything personally. Sometimes it's on them that they're so forgetful. It has nothing to do with me and their relationship to me, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important that you walk the child through, once they tell you, to give them options of how else they might think about it. Because they're not very skilled at that. Kind of like your friends. Let's say you had a friend when you were going through divorce and they'd been through divorce themselves, so they had more experience than you. They may give you other options. Well, have you thought about it this way?
Yeah.
Have you thought about it? Is it possible that? And so we need to do that with our children as a parenting teaching moment. So I don't know. It sounds like your mom got busy on the phone and she forgot. You skipped the part where you say, she's ADHD and she's kind of a lunatic around that. You skip that part, keep that in your brain. And you say, well, it sounds like your mom forgot. And did you end up getting ice cream at all after that? Oh, yeah. Well, she took me the next day. Okay. No harm, no foul. You ended up getting the ice cream. What's the problem? And then the child might just pout a little bit. And then this is where you parent them and you say, sounds like your mom did her best. It wasn't perfect, but most people aren't perfect. So forgiveness is in order.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you teach the value. It started with a feeling, then ended in going into thinking, and then you ended up with a value. I'm submitting that nearly every conversation you have with your child, especially when it has to do with the other parent in their household, you can turn into a values moment.
Yes.
Now, if you decide, or let's say you didn't even decide, you couldn't help your own feelings and you blew up, then what do, Rick? If you blew up and said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe your dad bought a car. He hasn't paid me child support for 2 months." Do you leave it there? What do you do? If you
now you got another opportunity to teach your child values by modeling apology. And I wasn't my best moment. And
yeah. Right. So how would that apology sound, Rick? If you did that, what would you say to your child?
I would start out with, the other day when we were talking about the red Corvette, that didn't go the way I wanted. I looked like I actually ignored your feelings and you had a good time. And I just skipped right over that and thought about how angry I was. And that wasn't good behavior. And I want to apologize for that. And now I want to hear more about the great time you had in the Corvette.
Yeah. Because I want you to know that you can talk to me about anything. Mm-hmm. Sadness, joy, anger, frustration. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, whether it's with your dad, whether it's with your friends at school, your teachers, wherever your world is, I want to know what you feel about it. Yep. Because it's important to me, not only because I love you, but I'm your parent. And I want to be able to lead you through these moments as you have. I mean, kids are having first time moments.
Right? Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Especially when they're young. When the very first time they encounter something, you have a grand opportunity to teach them that bottom up so that when it happens again, they have a bottom down experience, which is a great thing. So let's go back to the other example. If you did the wrong thing and you do it perpetually, this is behavior we often see in alienating parents. They react to their own feelings. They manipulate the child. They never say, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that or done that." And you create these children who have a very skewed idea of the world.
Yes.
It reminds me of the kid, and I know I've talked about this before, but the kid that I had in my office who was being alienated by his dad and by his mom against his dad. And he told me he didn't want to see his dad anymore because he had put cucumbers on his salad and that he didn't do his homework with him on Thursday nights when he was there. And I thought, Mom is sending the message that Dad should know what you like on your salad. And when he doesn't know or he forgets and puts those cucumbers on your salad anyway, it is a personal affront to you.
Yeah.
And you should not want a relationship with someone who doesn't parent perfectly or someone who doesn't know all of your desires on your salad or who forgets. And he's not a good parent if he forgets to do your homework with you on Thursday night. Think of the child that we're creating. Think of the adult we're creating. He's going to grow up and be pretty perfectionistic and maybe even controlling in his relationships, is he not?
Oh, yes.
Because what is he learning as a 10-year-old? If you're not perfect, then I can't love you.
Yeah.
Or if you make a mistake, I should reject you. Ooh. That's why these alienating behaviors are so destructive, because the normal parent, and many of our listeners do this naturally anyway.
Yeah.
It's just harder to do when it has to do with your divorce and your co-parent.
Yes.
You probably do it in a very stellar way when it's anything else
right,
that they bring to you. And what I'm saying is don't let go of that skill because what they're bringing to you hurts you more. You have to really put that in perspective, because parents that don't do this at all and do it wrong on purpose are creating little monsters as adults.
Yes. Yep.
That's the why behind taking care of those feelings, getting your child relaxed so that you can then think through, give them options to think about. Is it possible your mom just was having a busy day and she forgot, and then she felt bad and got you ice cream the next day? Is it possible that's forgivable? And hopefully your child says, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And let her off the hook. It's okay. Everything's okay. Nothing bad happened to you because you didn't get the ice cream at precisely 4:00 like she said she would.
Right.
Your life can go on. That's just a basic human life skill to learn. But sometimes we forget those skills that we already know to teach when they come to us with these more complicated problems.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy. Well, like you said, the adult parent comes from the top down. And we do it all the time. We do it without thinking. It's just natural to us. So when the child comes to us with these feelings, we automatically start from the top down in talking to our child, where we have to stop and remember what it's like to be a child, and start with the feelings and go up. Mm-hmm. So we get stuck from top, go to down, and then we just stick with the logic, expecting that to change the feelings, because that's what it does for us as the adult.
Right.
It doesn't do that for a child. Like you said at the very beginning, they haven't learned to do this yet. And we forgot that we had to learn to do it.
And consider this, those of you who are listening, who feel like your co-parent is a little bit clueless, and sometimes our co-parents tend to treat our children as if they're adults and they should already know this stuff.
Yes.
I would submit to you that they probably didn't have this as children themselves.
Yes.
They did not have parents that ushered them through this skill. They had to learn so-called the hard way, mm-hmm. and learn it through tough times. And that gets complicated psychologically because there may be some resentment that I didn't get to be a child, so you don't either, or whatever. Or maybe they just don't know how to do it because no one ever walked them through.
Yep.
So those parents tend to then expect the 10-year-old to not have big feelings at all because you're past that. You're 10. You should know better. Well, no, because even adults can have big feelings at times.
Yep. And those parents then end up with all the good intentions, but end up behaving incompetent as parents. Yep.
So now I want to return to Trenton's question, because he said, what can I do to better help her to be okay? So when she said, I'm tired of going back and forth between two homes, Rick, what would be a good feeling statement for Trenton to use with her?
Wow, it must really be frustrating to have two different houses and two different sets of things and worrying about leaving one at the other. Mm-hmm. That, and all the time consuming, and especially if your friends don't have to do that, I could see how that would be terribly frustrating and draining.
Yeah. I would like a parent, because I've said this to many parents, but it would be good to say something like, you know what, I was thinking about this the other day. It would be really hard for me to have two jobs. And I go to one job for part of the time, and then I go to another job for the other part of the time. And I have different bosses, and there's a different culture at each job. Maybe they're two really completely different jobs. That would be hard.
Yes.
I bet you that's how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about this before, that, there for a while, the nesting concept of co-parenting was real popular.
Right.
Nesting meaning the kids stay in one house and mom and dad move in and out of the house instead of the kids moving. So that way the kids are very stable in one home. It's hard to do. You have to have some money to do it because each parent has to have another place to live, right? But I've seen parents do it where each parent gets an apartment somewhere else. When it's mom's week, she comes in the house. And then when it's dad's week, he comes in the house. What happened to that concept? Why is it hard for most parents to do? Some parents can do it, but why is it hard for probably 90% of the parents out there to do that?
I was going to say, it's hard to imagine any adult being able to do that. It'd be so frustrating after a while. There's just too many other things going on in my life to have to think about that too.
You have to live in one place one week and then another place another week. And then, of course, there's sharing of spaces with somebody that you had to divorce.
Oh, right. Why is the dishes always piled up in the sink
when I things in the wrong place? So there's always toothpaste in the sink when I come here.
Yes.
Yeah, there's those complications. But at the crux of it is when parents have to do what they're actually asking their children to do in divorce, they give up.
Oh, yeah.
They say, are you kidding me? I'm not doing that. This is crazy. So we do need to have some understanding. In fact, of all the kids I've worked with in my entire career, I would say the number one thing kids hate about divorce is going back and forth.
I could see that.
They hate it. But they want to see both parents, so it's the only way.
Yep.
They want to see both parents. They just hate how they have to do it. So there's a lot that Trenton could say about that.
Yes.
There could be a half-hour conversation about the difficulties of doing that. And then she would probably then say to him something like, yeah, it's really hard. I was talking to Mom the other day about maybe just living in one place. And what should Dad say to that?
Well, I could see how that would make things a lot easier for you. And that it would be one way for it to be easier for you, I think is probably what I would end up saying. Yeah.
And then now she's calm now. So now you go into options, talking about options.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about that. What would that look like? Because, it's really important for me that we maintain our relationship and that you have parenting time with both of us, meaning living time.
Mm-hmm.
Not just, I don't want to just be a dad where we just go to the park and have a good time. It's important that I stay your parent.
Yeah.
How many days do you think I should be and don't be afraid to have this conversation. Some parents are so afraid to have it because, oh no, I'm agreeing to do something different. No, you're not. You're just having a conversation with your child. Because in the end, you can say, well, that would be really hard to make that change because we would probably have to get a judge involved or something, and I don't, so let's just keep trying it the way it is. And why don't you tell me if there's something more you need from me?
Mm-hmm.
How can I make it better for you when you're here? How can I make it better so that you don't have this feeling that it's too hard? What might she say to that?
She might not, there's a possibility here she doesn't say anything after that. I mean, it may not even be. So here's one thing she could say. I really wasn't trying to fix it. I just wanted somebody to understand what it was like.
Okay. If she's a little bit older, she may have the presence of mind to say that.
Yeah.
And I think when he's asking her, how can I make it better? It's important to ask that question because he says in here, I work really hard to be present.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she says, when I'm here, I'd kind of like to go to my girlfriend's house for a sleepover, but you don't ever want me to do that because you want to spend the time with me because Dad's working really hard, right?
Right. Yes.
Maybe part of your parenting is also letting go a little bit. Maybe she would say something. Maybe she would feel comfortable saying something like that to you if you didn't look so hurt to begin with.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you want her to be able to say, well, I really want to spend time with my friends while I'm here too. And, Mom lets me have sleepovers, but when I come over here, you won't let me do that. And do you think that we could do this? And he could say, absolutely. If that would make things feel better, let's talk about that. So there are different ways you could negotiate through it, depending on what she brings up. And in the end, what you have taught her, what we hope she remembers, is I don't hate my parents now. I did when I started this conversation. I hated divorce and I hated my parents. Now I realize I love both of my parents and they love me and care about me and I can negotiate with them.
Yeah.
And the value is people that love you, you can actually talk through things. You can actually negotiate with them because they care for you.
Yes.
What a great value. So that when I'm older and I get a boyfriend who I can't do that with, I hope my brain says, wrong guy.
Yeah.
Because my values say something different. But if you have a dad growing up that doesn't do that with you, and love looks like do it his way, or you can't share feelings or something like that, that's all I know. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So how important is this, Rick?
It's foundational. It's about raising healthy adults. And I'll go so far as to say I had to learn this as an adult.
Yeah.
Because this was not taught to me as a child.
Yeah. Yep. I had other good values taught to me, but not much about my feelings. I totally was taught the analytical from both my mother and my father. And that's not a criticism against them. I think that generation, that was just what they knew.
Yeah.
I have great analytical skills.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can fix everything, which I can't.
And how does that make you feel?
Therapy taught me what to do with my feelings.
There you go. Yes.
And then I became a therapist. Duh. Okay. All right. So next week, I want to talk about why the skill of the email protocol is so very important. Why does it work?
Yes.
Not just that it does work, but
right.
Why does it work?
Yes.
Makes sense? All right.
Yes.
Okay. It's good talking with you. We'll see everybody next week.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. The information contained in this podcast is generic. It must not be misconstrued as constituting legal or psychological advice. Decisions relevant to any specific individual, family system, or case require the direct evaluation of skilled, child-centered professionals.